Soaring energy prices have battered Europe since Russia's long, gruesome, and bloody war in Ukraine. To top it off, Russia has decided to suffer the world even more, or major European nations with its plan to halt all energy shipments to the continent. As householders and business owners search for ways to cope with Europe's ongoing energy crisis, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has proposed reforms to the EU's electricity market and unveiled plans for a proposed windfall tax on energy companies. And these plans have spared no thought for the European Organization of Nuclear Research, CERN. Consuming almost a third of the amount of power as the entire nearby city of Geneva when at whole operation, the plant is framing plans to shut down some of its particle accelerators, including its iconic Large Hadron Collider, LHC, during peak demand. The Large Hadron Collider is the world's largest and most powerful particle accelerator. It first started up on the 10th of September 2008 and remains the latest addition to CERN's accelerator complex. The LHC consists of a 27-kilometer ring of superconducting magnets with several accelerating structures to boost the energy of the particles along the way. This circular tunnel has two proton beams that are accelerated in opposite directions before they collide. The collision of high-energy rays lets physicists explore the extreme limits of the physical world, and in the process uncover phenomenon never seen before. One such event was the discovery of the God particle, which changed our insight into the physical world a decade ago. As the energy supply is affected, the collider is drafting plans to shut down some of its particle accelerators. Officials said a plan is in progress, and it'll be presented during the forthcoming meeting to the CERN Council to ease energy consumption, and that the Large Hadron Collider may have to be temporarily shut. A CERN spokesperson told CGTN, "As per the energy crisis, given the current context and as part of its social responsibility, CERN is drawing up a plan to reduce its energy consumption this winter, which will be put forward to the CERN Council during the forthcoming meeting the week of the 26th of September. LHC is one of 8 accelerators at the complex, and CERN wants to keep it operating and avoid a sudden shutdown that could disrupt it. The collider mandates superconducting magnets to bend the particle beam, cooled just above absolute zero to negative 271 degrees Celsius. Even with the beam turned off, this process uses a significant amount of power, so warming up the magnets after a shutdown could stall experiments by weeks. The plans come from Russia capping natural gas exports, forcing governments to fork billions to safeguard consumers and businesses from soaring bills. Russian energy giant Gazprom announced plans to indefinitely cease natural gas deliveries to Russia's main artery for fuel delivery to Europe, the Nord Stream gas pipeline. The plans come in the wake of Russia limiting natural gas exports, forcing governments to fork out billions to protect consumers and businesses from soaring bills. Putin explicitly said in a speech on Wednesday to an economic forum in Russia's Far East that Moscow would not lose what he calls its special military operation in Ukraine. "We will not supply gas, coal, heating oil. We will not supply anything if that occurs," he said. Europe usually imports about 40% of its gas and 30% of its oil from Russia. The United States and France say Moscow is already using energy as a weapon to weaken Europe's opposition to its invasion. The Russian leader said Russia would easily find enough customers in Asia to shift its energy exports away from Europe. "The demand is so high on global markets that we won't have any problem selling it," he said. The ongoing catastrophe in Europe has made it more challenging to achieve the goal of strategic autonomy. "This is a tragedy for Europe and the whole world, as it could lead to a severe imbalance in the entire geopolitical situation and stop the problem from returning to normalcy." The currently non-operational CERN got its big hit in 2012, confirming the existence of the Higgs boson, a particle that gives mass to all other particles. CERN is said to use as much electricity as a small city, and there's truth in that. The CERN's facility consumes about 1/3 of nearby Geneva, Switzerland's electricity a year. This is by the group's admission. While the exact numbers do vary from month to month and year to year, the lab's particle accelerator can account for around 90% of CERN's electric bill. That said, as CERN's energy strategy is already somewhat sustainable, it doesn't have the same utility crises as everyday Europeans. More than 2/3 of the juice from the French grid is from nuclear fission. That's higher than any country in the world, and the facility draws its power from the French grid. Not only does that drastically reduce the LHC's carbon footprint, but it also makes it far less reliant on imported fossil fuels. The research giant is planning to stretch its budget to pay for power, but there might not be enough of it depending on how France's reactors fare. If that doesn't happen, CERN might face a power supply shortage. For this autumn, it is not a price issue, it's an availability issue, Serge Claudette, CERN's energy management panel, told Science. It is not out of the ordinary for LHC to hibernate. In the past, CERN has shut down the particle accelerator for maintenance during the winter. The collider's stewards plan to mothball it from November until March. If Europe's energy crisis continues into 2023, the LHC pause could last well into the warmer months, if not longer. The LHC has more to lose by going dark for an indefinite time. The collider's equipment, such as the detectors used to watch collisions at tiny scales, might start to degrade if it has to power down for a year or more. This is why no one would blankly advertise to switch off and just wait 5 years, says Loasser. Keeping LHC in a dormant state also takes a fair amount of energy. Even if CERN's accelerators aren't operating, the particle physicists worldwide filtering through the data will still have plenty to work on. Experiments in the field produce tons of results, positions, velocities, and numerous mysterious bits of matter from thousands of collisions. Experts can still find subatomic artifacts concealed in the measurements as much as a decade after they're logged. The flow of physics studies almost definitely won't cease because of an energy crisis. The decision to power LHC's third experiment run remains in the air. This week, CERN officials will present a plan to the agency's governing authority on how to proceed. That solution will in turn be given to the French and Swiss governments for consultation. Only after will the final decision be made public. This chaos wouldn't have occurred if only better coordination existed across the EU. Europe's governments have varied wildly in their responses to high energy prices. Some have protected consumers by imposing retail price caps, granting fuel subsidies, or cutting consumption taxes on energy bills. Others have allowed energy firms to pass on higher wholesale prices to customers, preferring to concentrate on helping the low-paid directly. Generous untargeted help may be socially or politically expedient, but it also risks undoing incentives to limit energy use. The current situation in Europe has made it more challenging to reach the goal of strategic autonomy and for it to keep the LHC running. This is fatal for Europe and the whole world, as it could lead to a bitter imbalance in the entirety of the geopolitical situation and prevent the problem from returning to normalcy. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, let us know what would you like the following video to be about. I'll be reading you in the comments. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for future updates. See you soon.